Good morning. I just wanted to go over some information on our next few assignments for the final paper. I had a couple of questions through email, and I just wanted to address those for everyone, just in case anyone else was having questions. So if you, we're going to start actually with the rough draft rubric. And when you look at the rubric here, it goes into basically the thesis. So this paper is not going to be like a typical, I have a question, I want to research it and find the answer. This is a paper where we already know the answer and you're going to prove that with the research. So you're going to write a good solid thesis statement. And in the coming weeks, I'll have some examples of thesis statements in the announcement. But basically, you're going to use the research. So according to, researchers in the past, secure attachment leads to solid relationships later in life. So then once we have the thesis statement, then you're going to go and use your two articles from the bibliography. And then this is where some of the questions came in. Do we need two more articles? Here in the research portion of the rubric, you'll notice it says incorporates more than two scholarly resources. So in order to get exemplary credit, you will have to have at least one more new article. It is up to you if you want to write the bibliography with two completely new articles, or the literature review with two new articles, and that way you have four articles. You can choose which three you want to use. You can use all four. It's totally up to you. But in order to get exemplary credit, you will have to have more than two. So sometimes I have students who use the same two articles to write their literature review, and that's fine. But note that going forward, you'll lose 15% on your rough draft if you don't add another peer review article. So that's one question that I wanted to address. So going back to the thesis, once you've got your thesis statement, you're going to use those articles to then write a body to your paper. So in a lot of other psychology courses that I've taught, the way they have the class set up is that you do your final paper in chunks, and when you get to the end, it's completely written and ready to submit. It's a little different in this class. The literature review is not the main meat and bones of your paper. The literature review is basically helping you analyze those articles. So even though you've written an annotated bibliography and a literature review, you can't just copy and paste that into the middle of your paper and call it good. You actually do have to write a body to your paper. So if you want, as you go along, to just add a little bit to it, that's great. If you want to wait until the last week and put it all together, that's fine too. Just make sure you know that you have to have a body to your paper, and what the body will entail. You'll start with your thesis statement in your introduction, and then you will go into the body and you'll break down those articles. So you will say, as Smith proved in this article, there were 50 participants. 25 had secure attachment, 25 had insecure attachment. It was found that the ones who had the secure attachment were able to have longer, more established relationships later in life, and I'm just making all of this up off the top of my head. But you will write just like a typical research paper. You will analyze those articles, you'll write up a summary, and integrate those into your paper. Then you'll write your conclusion. Then you will put your original annotated bibliography, your original literature review, a reference page, and you're all set. The body does not need to be super long, but it does need to, like it says here, explores the issues through in-depth analysis and provide a unique perspective on a particular aspect of adolescent development. So if you have three literature reviews or articles that you're going to review in the body of your paper, I would say about a page for each of those articles, a page for your introduction, a page for your conclusion, put in your annotated bibliography and your literature review, and you're good. I don't necessarily count the pages. I know it says up here it needs to be 12 to 14 pages. I'm looking for content. I pull up all of your articles when I grade, and I look to see if you've analyzed them in the body of your paper. So that's kind of giving you an idea of how I'm going to look for it. So that is the rubric for the rough draft. When you pull up the rubric for the literature review, this is what's due this week. There is an example actually of a literature review and a rough draft on the general questions board. So this is the rubric that just goes into detail, talking about the background, what kind of research did the authors use, what was the problem that they were addressing, what are the strengths and limitations of the research that was done, and you can add in there how it will help you with your paper if you want. And then make sure you're using APA format. If you do not have an APA manual, Purdue OWL online, you can Google it, and then you can actually look, APA format for one author, APA format for no author, APA format for no date, APA, you can just type it in what you need, and it shows you exactly how to do it. So just make sure that you're following APA format. And that is basically, that will show you, and then there's the final project rubric, which we've already looked at when we were choosing our topic. So this breaks everything down when I go to grade your final paper. Again, it says 12 to 14 pages. I look at the content and what's inside the paper, not necessarily the length. One thing I do want to mention is your book. I know when you picked your topic, I mentioned it to you specifically if you were using a topic that is found a lot in the book. The textbook is not supposed to be used. Let me see if I can find that. The textbook is not supposed to be used at all. Right here it says your textbook, Wikipedia, will not be accepted. I let you use the textbook if you're describing something that you want to cite that does not fall within your topic. So if you wanted to, say secure attachment is defined as, you can use your textbook for that. But if you send me a rough draft and all of your citations are your textbook, you're going to be writing it over. So just make sure that you follow those guidelines. And we are going to hop over to the discussion for this week. The discussion on rites of passage and attraction. So when you write your discussion this week, you want to address both of those topics. So there's quite a few different rites of passage that we talk about this week that are really interesting. So just you need to talk about 2 of those. And then types of attraction. I know this week the short paper and the discussion topic, it's kind of hard to find some information. We've had this issue in other courses as well. I don't design the course, but when you give me feedback about the different topics, I pass that along. So I passed it along that some of this has been hard to find. So I have done a little bit of research on my own. I know for your short paper, on attachment, you can find information on insecure attachment on page 188 of the text. I'm not sure if they've updated the text actually since I looked that up, but the short paper topic is insecure attachment, and you can use the Shapiro Library also to look into those. And that's why I was talking about that as my research topic, because I was just answering some emails about that this morning. But anyway, attraction is different from attachment. So you're going to be talking about physical, sexual, intimate, emotional, all the different types of attraction that could lead to lasting relationships. And I know some of that is in the textbook. I've read up on that, just to make sure that you can find that. And then you can also do a quick search on the Shapiro Library. A lot of people use Sternberg's theory of love, and that's fine. Your discussion doesn't have to be super long as you're adding those citations, getting some good scholarly evidence into your discussion. That's all that it needs. So I hope that answers the questions for week 5. And then next week you're going to have your rough draft due. So like I said, as you're writing this week, when you're doing your literature review, if you want to write it in the style of this is the body of my paper, just so you don't have to turn around and do it again next week, that is absolutely fine. Just put a note on your submission so that I know that's what you're doing when I'm reading it, and I can give you some more feedback on that. So please let me know if you have any other questions, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks.